Alright, we're good. I got a couple of videos I did a day or two ago. I don't even know what is today anyway. Monday? Saturday I did a couple of videos. I'll be putting those up too. I'm either going to put them up with this one or I'll put them up tomorrow because they're kind of independent of this anyway, because this is mostly going to be about the medium A.L.I.C.E pack. Okay, this is not the setup video that I talked about the other day. This is just overall, when you go to get an A.L.I.C.E pack, a lot of people just buy them online. Some people have the luxury of finding them at flea markets and being able to kind of go through them and everything before they buy. Some places you could still find them at a reasonable price. A lot of places you don't find them at a reasonable price any longer, simply because of the time period that we're in. We're in the end of days. If you don't want to believe that, that's up to you. It's on you. But I believe that we are in the end of the good book, and things are ramping up. So I know some of you guys probably been wondering about this with Dracula, right? Vlad Tepes. So he was a Christian. Basically, Bram Stoker vilified him for a novel, turned him into a villain, just for the novel. But the real Vlad was a Christian, and he went through a lot. That's not what this video is about. But he did go through a lot. Known as a fierce warrior. He was Orthodox Christian first, and then he converted over to Roman Catholic Christian. I think that was by circumstance. It was because of the time period, and he had to kind of work with what he had. As far as other peoples and whatnot, you got to kind of, back then I guess, you got to kind of just work with what you got, So I'm sure that he still was, they're very similar. They're very similar, Orthodox and Roman Catholic. It's kind of, here's the Roman Catholic, here's the Orthodox. They had a schism at one point. That's how it came about. But anyway, he was very much against Muslims. Lots of battles with Muslims, and that's what this is about. When the Muslims invaded Vlad the Impaler's kingdom, he shoved spears in 20,000 of their rectums and made a forest. Then he sat down to eat in their midst, eat dinner. So the thing is that, he was in power over there, I think 3 times, if I remember correctly. He was held prisoner for a number of years by the Muslims, the Ottoman Empire. It's just it's an amazing amount of history to read about. But anyway, he was really he's a good guy. In my opinion, he was a good guy. But, that thing about the spears and the rectums, that was all mind warfare, he was messing with their minds. He used guerrilla warfare and psychological operations. His army was smaller, and the Ottoman Empire came against him. They saw all those guys on those spears, basically. Well, this guy's a little bit too loony to mess with, they turn around. So, very, very intelligent guy. So, yeah. I'm a Christian. It is what it is. Don't like it? Go back to your own sandbox. It's the way it is. Yep. Always got something up here. So let's get back to this A.L.I.C.E stuff. So I got this frame recently. A buddy of mine gave this to me. It's just a very generous guy, and I really appreciate this. He didn't want it for some reason. He goes through packs like nothing. I mean, he's never satisfied with any pack that I've ever seen. Just is what it is. You know, maybe one day he will be satisfied, you know, with his packs. Keep getting texts. So, anyway, this is a black one. I was originally looking for a black one. This is a T3 frame in black. I'm going to give it another couple of coats before I, you know, use it for my own. And I'm going to turn it into tiger stripe. At some point this summer, I'm going to do a tiger stripe paint job on this. And then I will put it permanently with my medium A.L.I.C.E that I've got. It's currently a project. Okay, it's currently a project, but this will go with it. You saw it the other day. Now this A.L.I.C.E pack here has the original style straps on it. Okay, and I have, I think, about 6 pockets on it. So it's got 2 top pockets here. These are these pockets are machine gunner pouches. I don't recommend that you use magazines with the M240 or the M249 or whatnot, because there's a lot of people have issues with that. You know, just run the belt. Now, what do I use this for? Whatever I want. So that's what I got those there for. Because I just got them slid onto. I just slide them onto these main straps. And then what I do is I go ahead and attach it to this keeper right here on each one. So I just attach it on each one. Now, the main thing about this video is going to be, you know, looking out for what you get, right? If you're going out to buy a medium A.L.I.C.E, right? A medium A.L.I.C.E is a very good pack for patrolling and just short-term, short duration, you know, direct action, things like that. But the thing is that you don't want to be overloaded. You want to have a home base. You know, you got to remember, I'm trying to convert this to like a Minuteman type scenario, okay? Because this is going to be for the average person. This is not, this video is not for the soldier about this sort of stuff. It's for, not for a regular person, you know, a person who's got as a soldier as a job, right? But somebody who's a civilian and needs to be a Minuteman type, right? So when you go to get one of these, you want to just look at the sewing and look at your connection points, right? Don't get something that's been all modified up already. It's better if you modify it yourself. That way you know what's in it, and that way you know how good it is, and so on. Just try to get something that's stock. And if you want to modify it after that, then look around all over the YouTube and find stuff that looks good. Ask your friends, how do you like this? Have you done this? So on. Do you understand what I'm saying? This pack here is stock. Now, I've had this rucksack here for years. Years. Years and years. And it's been all kinds of places. And it's still holding up. There's no issues. You know, stitching's all still good. You know, that's the thing about, you know, nylon and polyester and stuff. The stuff practically will last forever, right? So this stitching here, this stitching is all good. You know, anything where there's like a little thread here or a thread there, lighter. You know, burn all the loose ends, things like that. You know, just tidy it up. Like there's a couple little loose ends right there. Okay. You know, you could just tidy that up if I wanted to. The little loose ends there, you could tidy that up. Yeah. I mean, the reason why I push the medium A.L.I.C.E so much, because, you know, too often people will get overloaded. Too often. It's one of the problems that they had with the Gulf War on Terror. You know, GWOTGY, or whatever they want to call it. You know, look at those guys at the, my God, man. Think you got enough stuff? You know? Because, I mean, the reality is that every theater of combat is going to be different. That's the reality. Every theater of combat is going to be different. Different terrains, different people, different climate. Yeah, it's all going to be different. You have to tailor what you're going to be doing to your situation. You know, for instance, like a situation of civil unrest and a Minuteman type scenario are going to be slightly different. You know, civil unrest, you're looking more for like, you know, 72-hour go bag, right? Which will help you get out of a sticky situation and get home and take care of business. Okay, and then you know, you got civil unrest. That's one thing, and then you've got, you know, warfare coming home, right? Warfare coming home to you via, you know, an external element such as the Chinese or the Russians and so on. You know, those are things that you have to think about. We always say, well, we'll never be invaded. Japanese never thought we would be invaded ever because, you know, the Second Amendment. And it's still pretty much there, although it's being attacked all the time, which really ticks me off. And I don't, I always tell people, do not obey any unconstitutional orders, laws, whatnot, acts, amendments to acts, all that stuff. Don't obey that. You have you have an inalienable right to have firearms. It's just the way it is. I don't care if you're a cop and you don't like what I say. Too bad. Constitution's there for a reason. And those inalienable rights are there for a reason. Japanese knew it. I mean, it's obvious. 10-year-old could understand the Constitution. You know, it's the reason why we have not been invaded by China yet. He even said, you know, in 2020, you know, 5+ years ago, maybe 6 years ago, you know, the leader of China said, you know what? You guys need gun control. You know, he wants gun control in the United States. He wants all the guns out of the hands of civilians in the United States. Why? Does it make it so much easier for him to invade? You know, they got the people. They've got the amount of people because that's all they do is have babies over there. I mean, all the years that I've been alive, I don't remember the United States being much over 300 million people. But the population just keeps rising in this world. We're up to like 8 million now. That's crazy. I can remember when it was so much less than that. Who's been having babies? Muslims and the Chinese. You know, it used to be two kids per person in China. Now I don't think they have that. I think they're trying to swell their numbers so that they have enough people to take over something, right? Regardless, it does not matter. Need to get rid of the Muslims in every country. Every Western country, all Muslims have to go. China is getting rid of Muslims and destroying their mosques. Send them all back to the litter box in the Middle East. You know, send them back to their sandboxes. It's where they need to be. Get back to this pack. The medium A.L.I.C.E pack is very easy to modify with extra stuff. Okay, this frame, which I will be using on another pack, another A.L.I.C.E pack soon. I'm just gonna go ahead and put it on here. All right. So this is the thing. Yeah, just slide it in. Now this is one thing you got to look for if you're going to be using an A.L.I.C.E pack for your Minuteman setup. Is you got to get a pack that fits the frame. This frame fits all regular A.L.I.C.E packs, and so does the government issue frame. Fits all regular A.L.I.C.E packs. Now there are some A.L.I.C.E packs which have been they're medium packs, but they've been rebadged as Radio Man's packs, RTO packs, whatnot. They don't fit. They don't fit. So get yourself a regular medium A.L.I.C.E pack and make sure, ask the questions. You know what? If you don't ask the questions, you're the one that's at fault. You ask the questions. Does this fit a medium A.L.I.C.E frame? Or does this pack fit the A.L.I.C.E frame? Okay. Does this pack fit the A.L.I.C.E frame? Medium and large A.L.I.C.E both fit the A.L.I.C.E frame. Okay. The regular medium and the regular large A.L.I.C.E pack both fit the same frame. They'll fit this frame. They will fit a government-made frame. Either or. Okay. The government frame should be a song to purchase it. It shouldn't cost that much. This frame is like $135 or something like $135 or $145, something like that for this frame. But it's completely welded throughout, and it's set up really nicely to attach stuff. It's really well thought out. I'm very happy with this frame. Now, I like this frame much better than the Tactical Tailor frame. And it has a place on each side for your shoulder straps. Now, right now, I've got the shoulder straps on the pack, okay, because I'm using this pack right now without the frame. But let's go on to that. Okay, so there's two types of straps. There's straight straps, and there's some that have kind of like a little bit of a curve to them. Okay, I'm going to turn this here slightly Now these are the ones that are a little curved to one side or the other. I made sure that I have the quick release on both sides. Okay. One thing you got to watch out for is corrosion. So make sure that these are not all corroded up, the buckles or these poppers here. Okay, make sure that that stuff's not all corroded. Now, I have upgraded my project pack in there to the MOLLE II yoke shoulder strap, which is a shoulder and scapula pad, both all integrated. That will be coming up in another video. I'm going to actually show how to put all that together. So if you get yourself a medium A.L.I.C.E, just a plain run-of-the-mill A.L.I.C.E, and you want to wait and get the pieces parts now, scapula, shoulder, yoke strap set up for MOLLE II. If you want to get that, and there's somebody out there now that's selling the yoke. The yoke is, when I say yoke, the yoke setup, this is not yoke because this is not integrated. These two are not together. But the yoke setup is the shoulder straps integrated with the scapula pad for MOLLE II. So if you want to get that separately, so you just buy a regular A.L.I.C.E, see if you can find it with the straps intact. If not, don't worry about it if you're going to go to the MOLLE II yoke. And then, you want the waist belt. Up to 5'9", you want the rounded part facing down. Over 5'9", you face it up. But we will get into all of the setup of all those materials in the future here this summer. Okay, so sometime in the next couple of months, I'll have a whole video showing all of that, setting up all those parts properly. Okay, so that way you got it set up. Okay, in the meantime, I would suggest just finding yourself a regular old A.L.I.C.E pack. If you can get it with the straps, better, because at least you got something in the interim. You understand? Now, like I said earlier, you want to look at all the stitching, and then you want to look for corrosion, and you want to look for rips, and you want to look at the seams on the rucksack. Okay, just look at all that stuff. Those are the things that you need to be looking at, inside and out. You need to look for overly worn areas in the material. Is it paper thin? Has it been drug around on the ground a lot by a sniper? Etc. You know what I'm saying? So, next is pouches. So, I got these pouches on each side. This is a modified pouch, I think from the Bren gun. So, this company doesn't exist anymore. But this company took Bren gun pouches, the old Bren guns. You guys remember those? British Bren gun. They took those as an example, and they made these. So I've got one of those on each side attached using my method. Okay, and then this is RIT dyed using apple RIT dye. So the thing about apple is that it will give, this was originally multi-scam. I call it multi-scam. You might call it MTP. Okay. Or you might even have MTP, because there is just a very slight difference between the two. MTP is British. Okay. Multi-scam is American, but it's basically the same thing, right? Now, I have used two different types of dye on multicam. I have used apple. It gives it a really nice summertime, bright, very jungly green look. Okay, very nice. And then I decided to try camel color. Camel. So the camel color really came out cool too. So if you want something that's a little bit more like, late summer, early autumn, there's still green out, but it's starting to turn brown here and there. The camel came out real nice. Every time that I talk about colors on this channel, I'm in New England. You have to think about where you are and, well, will that work for me? So, and if you ever have any questions, always feel free to drop me an email and I will talk to you about your situation and try to get something sorted out for you. Now, you have to remember, one of my favorite camouflages is tiger stripe. And believe it or not, tiger stripe works in a lot of the United States. It does. And I use the light colored tiger stripe for the spring, in early summer, and then I will swap over to a darker tiger stripe for, regular old summer when summer is full on, because the leaves change. They start changing to a darker green, right? Not dark green, but a darker green. So the darker green tiger stripes I swap over to. Now, this is just an olive drab ruck. So then, but adding this, camouflage to it is okay. There's nothing wrong, because it all just kind of goes together. Because there's no set pattern in nature, right? We're not trying to make a pattern. We're just trying to be like here and there. You know what I mean? Now these right here were also dyed with apple. So these are apple. These two here are apple dyed. They were all multicam. Now, and then I have the multicam pouch on the back. And this pouch here is the one that I will generally use for my first aid stuff. And we are not talking your blowout pouch or your IFAK, okay? We had to talk about blowout pouches and IFAKs in another video about 1 or 2 videos ago. That is for your paramedic to patch you up, alright? This is for your regular old everyday first aid stuff, right? Patch up your feet, keep you on the move, keep your feet patched up, Band-Aids, antiseptics, and all that other crap goes in here. Okay, this is where I put it. It's where I put it. And when I was with, other men, we all put this in the same spot. That's the thing. You have to be systematic about stuff. If you have a group of men, say you're working with a militia or you're a mercenary or whatnot, I mean, you got to work it out. Everybody's got to know where everybody's stuff is. Okay? So, on this pack, I've got this one right here. I always have at least one piece of parachute cord with an overhand knot to back up any and all straps that are just poppered together. Okay? At least one paracord retainer. So if all those things pop, I don't lose it. Okay? physically tied to the rucksack. Now, we'll go over that in the other video, which is forthcoming. Okay. So in my regular old medium, I've got another pouch here, and then I have another pouch over here. So I have 3 of these pouches around the medium on top. Now in this particular pack, I have an Ovaltine container in here, and you can paint these with olive green paint if you want. It helps, you know, with camouflage, you know, of course. So see there? And you can put stuff in there that you do not want to get wet. Now, what you got to remember is, if you got stuff that's rattling around, you know, this is a container. You need to have it to where it's dampened by something, a sock or what. You know, whatever you want to do. There's nothing in here right now. But the thing is that these pockets on here do not have a draw cord top. And even if they did, it would be kind of, you know, sad. So, you know, you can either put an Ovaltine container, and this one is camoed, or you can use a sock, or, you know, put stuff in the sock and then put that in there, maybe tie off the top, or you could use a draw bag, or a very small, like a Mac sack. Okay, you could use those. The Mac sack is a waterproof bag that you just roll down the top and clip it together. You can put that in there. Just whatever you want to retain your stuff. Because there's nothing worse than getting on site somewhere, wanting something in particular that you thought you had, and then finding out that it went missing somewhere along the way. Right? Now, these packs always have an open top, just like a garbage bag, right? So the thing is what do we want to do? Dry bag. You know, use a liner bag. You can put a liner bag in there. Things that you don't necessarily need anytime soon go in the bottom. Pack it light to heavy. Lighter at the bottom and heavier at the top. Okay? Lighter at the bottom and heavier at the top. Try to put, you know, like if you were going to carry extra ammunition in this pack, then there's another pouch in here which is technically for a radio. Okay, back in the day they might carry the Prick 77, I think it was. That would go in here. Okay, now nowadays though, you can get external radio pouches like I have. I have an external radio pouch which mounts onto the inner part of the A.L.I.C.E frame. Okay, so it'll mount up in here. So you can put your radio in there. A lot of A.L.I.C.E packs, the top part here is wore out. Like this absolutely has no rubber backing on it any longer. So the way you would take care of this is go ahead and get this flattened out. You know, take it off the frame, take everything out, take everything off, get this completely flattened out, and then use Flex Seal. So I've seen so many people have used Flex Seal on there, and I haven't seen anybody complain about it. So basically you want to try to get it as flat as you can, and you know, go ahead and spray it with Flex Seal. Flex Seal comes in different colors, and then go from there. In my case, I think that is that's a want and not a need. You know, it's a want and not a need because, you know, I'm gonna be putting stuff in dry bags, you know, inside here anyway. Whether it's my clothing, extra, if I have extra clothing, not likely, but if I have extra clothing, it'll be one set. That way I can maintain a dry and a wet, you know. Well, that's the way you do it for jungle warfare, you know, dry and wet. So wear your dries at night and let your wet stuff dry out while you're sleeping. And then in the morning, if it is dry out, you'd be lucky. But it'll be drier, and you'll just have to change from your dry set into your wet set, and then go back to business. Right. So these straps and stuff on a lot of these old A.L.I.C.E packs are could be pretty stiff. They can be kind of hard to work with. You know, how do I get that back to workability? You know, it's still good. You just need to get it. You know, you need to get it loosened up. You need to get it back working. So in the other room there, I've got L.L.I.C.E boot guard. L.L.I.C.E boot guard. It's beeswax and lanolin. Now, you don't want to use a lot of that because it may attract critters, right? But you could put a little bit on the area that you need to move the most and you need to get back flexible the most and work it, and it will come back. Okay, see how easy it is to move this through here? See that? That's been worked with L.L.I.C.E boot guard probably a few years ago now. A lot of years ago. These have been used with L.L.I.C.E boot guard also. I see. See that? Now you got to remember, when it comes to fighting, you want to fight as light as you can. As light as you can. No 100-pound rucksacks on patrol. Okay? That stuff is for tabbing in to establish your base, you know, your patrol base. It's switching off. To a lighter setup, okay? 3-4 days at the most. Most of the time, you will be carrying a lot of ammunition. That's just the facts. You'll be carrying a lot of ammunition. You want to carry it as high on your back as possible. You know, don't need a whole lot of doodads, extra crap. You don't need all that stuff. You gotta learn stuff from the past. This is why you study warfare. You don't just do warfare, you study warfare. You look back different wars. You look back at different wars and you see what they did. You see where they were. What they were doing. You know, it's not a cut and dried thing. But in Vietnam, the thing was heavy on ammunition, very lightweight snacks, not a lot of food. Most guys were lean, real lean in Vietnam that were doing things like, recon and stuff like that. They weren't. They had extra ammunition, but they had ammunition so that they did not get pinned down, because generally a small force, you know, 2 guys or 4 guys, 6 guys, and then, if they needed more guys, they would tailor things, but the thing is heavy on ammunition, because ammunition is what gets you out of sticky situations. Okay, you gotta have plenty of ammo. You can't just have a team leader loaded down with ammo and then all the rest of you guys just go with a regular loadout. No, you can't just go with 7 magazines. You got, maybe you have 7 magazines, but then you have, a whole bunch more ammo in your rucksack, But it takes time to reload, even if you have stripper clips. You got stripper clips, you got extra magazines with loaded up, all ready to go. All that stuff is weight, by the way. You have to start thinking about weight, being weight conscious, being weight conscious about everything. You can say, well, I really want to carry 15 pairs of socks, but I better not. See, that's the mentality of people that are inexperienced and people that well, I'm not going to get into that because I'm going to get myself in trouble with ladies. So I'm not going to go there. Anyway, you want things that can serve multiple purposes. Like when you field strip food rations, you got to look at cocoa. And then you look at sugar. Well, wait a minute. Cocoa could serve 2 purposes. It could serve as a sweetener, and it could serve as cocoa. Sugar, it's just a sweetener. Bin. Straight in the bin. Don't need it. Cocoa, it's a drink and it's a sweetener. You could use it for both. Okay, this is the mentality you have to have when you're packing stuff, right? You don't want to be overly packed. For a long range patrol, as much as 3 to 4 days, you want the bare minimum on food. You want snacks. You want stuff that doesn't make noise. You want to be able to be tidy with your stuff. Litter management. Poop management, and so on. Sometimes you're not going to be able to just crap in a hole and cover it up. There's going to be times when you're not going to be able to do that. There's going to be times when you're going to have to crap in a bag and haul it with you. So just remember that. Have a contractor bag inside your rucksack that's 4 little bags of poop. You tie those off, put them in the contractor bag, and you haul it out with you. Okay? That's the way it's going to have to be. So you don't have extra contractor bags. 2 or 3 contractor bags. You want to have minimum on food. You want to have open and eat food. You don't want to have anything that you have to prepare unless it's absolutely necessary. I mean, if you're in an LPOP, which is a listening post, observation post, right, then you can take a stove, okay? If you deem it, as far as security, if you deem that it is okay, you have to think about everything in security mode before you do it. Okay, is this going to be okay with security? Am I going to make too much noise? You know, you have to have light discipline and noise discipline and all that stuff. Those are things that you got to think about. Why do I go talking about the old medium A.L.I.C.E? This thing I think came out in around 73 or 74 is when this came out. And people dog it all the time. They do. They dog it all the time. But see, the thing is some people like me, it fits me perfectly to a T. Some people are too tall and lanky. And I'm sorry, it doesn't work for you. You know, it could be quite uncomfortable for some people. But they build to the average, okay? They build to the average person. Okay? Not all about comfort. But for me, this is quite comfortable. It's comfortable with a frame and it's comfortable without a frame. Now, this particular one I've got set up without a frame. I made a waist belt set up here that ties directly into these straps on each side. It's all ready to go. If I need a waist belt, I've got it. There are times when you don't have a frame that you need a waist belt. So that's what that's for. If you get an A.L.I.C.E pack, do not be a fool and cut these tri-glide buckles off, okay, and put the plastic side release buckles, okay. Do not go with solely side release buckles. Many people do that, and that's foolish, because what you need to do, I'm going to show you right now. What you need to do is go ahead, see how that's just there by itself? And now I'm going to go ahead and put this here, right? Okay. Let's see how I want to do this now. I can't remember. Where am I? Okay. There we go. Now, I got this set up to where I got that part, okay, the male part, on the strap that goes up to the top. This female part is going to attach to this tri-glide, this steel tri-glide. Why are we leaving this steel tri-glide in there? Because if something happens to where this breaks, usually this is fine, but sometimes the male side will have a piece break off, just being, you know, careless. So what we do is we put the male side on here, and then we get some 1-inch webbing in olive green, and we run it through here and back over here and make one big loop, and then we just sew it a few times. But we go ahead and we have this on that loop also, okay? So we sew it here, so it separates this from the tri-glide, and then we're like that. right? So the tri-glide is still in there. So if something happens to the plastic buckle, you blow that buckle, you're not up shit creek without a paddle. Okay, you're not up. You're not up the creek. You still got your oar. Okay, now, then you could just go ahead and, you know, use this like you would normally do. See, this is pretty stiff. Probably go put some L.V.I. boot guard on there. Let's see, because I never converted this one to that. I've always just left it stock. Anyway, you'll hear stories. You will hear stories about the regular USA made A.L.I.C.E pack frames. Well, in a Minuteman situation, in a militia situation, where 99.9% you're not going to be jumping out of an aircraft. Okay, you won't have to rig up, you know, the pack for jumping. A lot of people have problems with the rivets popping on the USA made A.L.I.C.E pack frame. But if you're not going to be acting in a capacity as a paratrooper, you don't have to worry about it. You could, if you're just going to be a ground pounder, you know, just a leg, then you're not going to need to worry about that too much. You know, it's still going to be plenty strong. Just get a regular old frame and deal with it. Now, I think I've pretty much covered about everything. I'm going to be covering more and more as I go with this, because I do have that one other one there, that camouflaged one. I'm working it out as my regular patrolling rucksack setup for spring, summer. And like I said, I'm going to do a video on that. I'm working up the spring, summer, and then I'm going to work up the autumn, winter. And I'm going to be putting all that stuff on video for you guys. We know stuff is happening. We know stuff is coming down the pike. And I'm always trying to do what I can do. I mean, I'm an old guy now, you know. So my time is limited. You know, I got to do a lot of stuff outside every year. I have to work on this sort of stuff. You have to work around money because I don't have deep pockets. You know, despite what many people may think, I don't have deep pockets. I have a finite amount of resources. So it is what it is. I do stuff as I can do it, and I do stuff in my spare time. You know, that's just the way it is, and I gotta work around things just like everybody else. I would say that I'm comfortable. That's what I would say. I would not say I'm not rich, not poor, but I'm comfortable. I still have to work around things. I still have to save up for things just like everybody else. I still have to work within my means just like everybody else. You know, you get a lot of people that get they just get, you know, they're misguided. They think certain things about different people on YouTube. You know, I'm just trying to kind of show you where I'm at, right? may have recognized this patch here. Now, in the old days, they used to, in Ireland and Scotland and England, you know, they talk about the Green Man, and you see the Green Man, you know, his in the foliage and stuff on churches and whatnot. And anyway, that's the Green Man. Yeah, so basically all you're seeing is a bush that looks like a face. So I put that on there many years ago, you know, because when I camo up, become one with the environment, you know. You got to become one with the environment. No indicators. Limit your target indicators. That's the whole thing, right? You don't want to become a target. You just want to look for the targets. Well, that's that, I guess. I think I'm going to go ahead and shut this video down. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop me an email or whatever, and I'll get back to you as well. Like I said, I'm going to have more build out videos coming up, which will deal with the medium A.L.I.C.E. On spring, summer, autumn, winter. You know, I got 2 setups depending on the seasons. I'm condensing 4 seasons into 2. You know, and then you guys can use this as a model to work out your own scenario. If you're in Maine and you have a lot of pine trees around, you might want to go with the German pattern, Flecktarn. You might want to do it. You know, it might fit in real well. You know, Flecktarn is a good one for that situation. You know, there is no one camo for all. That's a myth. You know, it is what it is. Some camo companies try to sell themselves as one camo for all, and it ain't true. So, well, there's so much to talk about. It's so many questions. So, if you guys want to get your list of questions or whatever, you're more than welcome. So, I will catch you in another video. See you later. Don't forget, aliens are demons.